welcome back. It's still your #1 breakfast show on TV, the Good Morning Nigeria show. Thank you for joining us. Earlier on, Olive mentioned that we will be discussing employment practices in Nigeria. Now, we just read or learned in Foreign Focus about what's going on in Air France and the fact that 2 senior executives were almost beaten up to a pulp and stripped naked following the threats of cutting 2,900 jobs. Well, back home in Nigeria last week during the newspaper headline review, we brought you a story that was revealed by the Punch newspapers following an investigation that the Lagos state government have shut down Chinese firm over workers' deaths. Now, the report was first broken via the Punch newspaper, and following that, the Lagos state responded to it. Now, the Lagos state government has shut Hongjing Steel Company Limited, a Chinese company based in Amuwo, Dofin local government, for safety violations. Now, the state government issued the stop work order following the death of a casual worker, Mr. Emeka Umo. He sustained severe burns after liquefied iron spilled on him on September the 23rd, 2015. Now, the newspaper learned he died at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, where he was rushed to treatment by the management. Now, the Lagos State Safety Commission, Mr. Fuad Oke representative, stated that the company failed to adhere to the state safety standards. Mr. Oke also lamented the working conditions in the company, saying it was deplorable. Now, looking at this question, we have a guest in the studio with us, an expert, a HR expert, Mrs. Enife Atubiloye. She has years of experience working with organizations to manage policies, particularly when it comes to human resources, and she has kindly joined us in the studio today to discuss the employment practices in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Mrs. Atubiloye, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Now, speaking about employment rights, safety standards, the state of employment practices in Nigeria, looking at this story as a case study, what would you have to say about what's going on, particularly the Lagos State safety standards saying that the safety standards weren't adhered to?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because we pretty much have all it takes to get it right, really. If you look at what has happened, so much has gone wrong, so much. People have been, first of all, if you look at the way they are hired, I read the story, I followed it, and they are really on contracts. And looks like they revolve the contract in such a way that they don't get permanent. And that's dealing with some technicalities there. Because if they have that number, a certain number of permanent employees, what would happen is that they would have to be unionized. And so there's a number that actually makes it possible for them to get unionized. And so what these guys do, they play around the rules pretty much and try as much as possible for them not to get beyond that number so they don't get unionized. Now, you hire these people and they're on contracts, and look at the working conditions. Most of these working conditions really can actually be helped. I mean, our authorities need to be able to put things in place to, for instance, inspections. How do these people come in? What kind of checks do they go through before they come in? And one part of the story, and I have actually noticed it, is that you have not just our workforce, you have drivers, Chinese drivers driving in Nigeria. Why would a Chinese driver be driving in Nigeria when we have able drivers? Now, there's a lot of allowing that has happened, right? And we have authorities that have to put their eyes, into it. And it's really about inspecting, going for random inspections and checking these companies. I'd also like to mention that whilst the Chinese one is looking very dramatic right now, it's not just the Chinese companies. It's even our Nigerian companies too. I mean, people who work, look at especially the low-level workers, the conditions under which they work. This Chinese company, as an example, I understand they pay them, I think, about 6,000 naira or so a day.
That's not even up to the minimum wage.
Below minimum wage. Who is checking it?
That's a big question this morning.
It? It's really about first of all, who's allowing it? Who's allowing them in? There are many, you see, it's not just, I hear the employees complain, and it's almost like an opportunity for employees to just come out and say everything. Not everything is valid, really. I mean, one of the complaints was, we are paid only when we work. Well, if that's the contract, if it's a daily pay contract, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the real question is, should it be a daily pay contract?
Okay.
The real question is, should we be paid that sum? And then also there's the big question around Chinese companies. They're coming with their Chinese culture. The Chinese culture is very different, especially the work culture.
Yes.
Is, to a very large extent, is great, you know. But then some people will tell you, some Chinese, Indians, some nationalities, that they live to work. Whereas the average fun-loving Nigerian wants to work to live.
There are so many
They're
people
two
that want to
different
be
things.
like, they want to be a part of this. They want to give them an opportunity
Okay.
to calling. So if you're watching us, you're an employer, you're an employee, or you look forward to being one someday, the numbers to call are 01277-196, 01277-2196, 01277-8196, and 01277-196. So please call in, share your thoughts, ask your questions, and let us know. So a while ago, we played a video, we showed a vox pop, we went to the streets and asked people what they think their rights are, and a lot of people said what their rights are. Now, what are the basic rights that an employee should know that they have? Because we know that a lot of these people don't sue for certain things they should sue, because they don't even know that they have these rights. So what are the basic rights that an employee should know that they are entitled to?
Okay, first of all, an employee is entitled to a right to be respected, a right to be paid for his work, a right to be provided the right environment to work, which is actually the bane of this particular issue. Right. And if you follow the story, I hate to use this as the only story, because there are many stories. An employee works and, first of all, somebody tells the story of how his 3 fingers were crushed. What did they do?
Were they compensated?
And were they, beyond even the compensation is great. Were they compensated? No, they weren't. But before we even get there, an employee loses 3 fingers. What did they do about it? How did he lose those 3 fingers? What kind of health safety practices are there? What kind of adjustments could they have done? But did they pay attention? Right. And then shortly after, another employee dies. There's a story of, I think, 1 year ago, of about a number of years ago, about 100 employees dying in a factory in Ikorodu.
In Nigeria,
In Nigeria. And, you know, who is checking it? You know, and so pretty much even beyond, so the employee rights, the right to be paid, a right to be treated with respect.
And respect is a very broad word, because a number of people would say that, I mean, respect would it's not just saying, oh, I'm greeting you and I say, you know, I'm respectful of you, but respectful of the fact that you're here to render a service and you deserve to be paid on time, for your salaries not to be taken, or for you not to be used as a puppet while working.
You know, I like the fact that you mentioned that respect is a big word. See, in terms of how employers treat their employees, you can address it from a psychological point of view. That's where your respect comes in. And it's very deep-rooted. It's beyond just the greeting. It's me seeing you as a human being, irrespective of the fact that you are the janitor or you are the doorman, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So it's me understanding that you have a right to breathe fresh air. It's me understanding that you have a right to be treated well. Because you see, there's a big conversation in human resources. It's employee engagement. And the question is, to what extent are employees engaged in the workforce? Now, one of the biggest ways you can engage your employees is psychologically. People feel respected around here. It's beyond even the money. Oh, I love being paid well, yes, but I just want to stay here because I'm treated well, I'm respected, you know, I'm provided, the environment works. Now, by the time you begin to take it beyond the psychological, the physical, not all health safety challenges are as dramatic as the Chinese one.
Yes.
A good example is the chairs that me as an employer provides for my workforce. to sit on. Slowly, you might have people that you might buy the wrong chair, and the people are just getting back pain slowly.
Let me test my chair.
Slowly. Many times the impact is long after work. And by the way, a typical employee spends over a third of their lifetime at work. So at the end of the day, what are they exposed to? You know. And so, yes, so the employee is entitled to the right environment to work.
Now, who checks? Because you've said so many things. I'm just listening to you with rapt attention, and I'm sure a number of people out there, in their homes are listening to you, wanting to understand what their entitlements are. Now, having learned their rights or what they're entitled to in their places of work, who, number one, enforces it? Number two, in a situation where it's not in place, how can this be checked? Now, we've mentioned government agencies who are meant to do random checks, who are meant to have, just inspect randomly. But in situations where they're not doing these things, is there a way that the employees themselves can actively ensure or seek for help to ensure that these rights are being respected in their places of work?
And in addition to that, just before you answer, is unionism discouraged in workplaces?
Well, put it this way, what has happened is that the union has been one major weapon that employees have latched onto. And the unions have done a good job. Sometimes they overdo the good job, if you know what I mean. Right. So, but the unions have done a good job. So it pretty much put in checks and balances even with. Now, are unions encouraged in the workplace? Employers don't like unions. But the employees like unions. Now, there's a lot of ignorance. The big thing around you, sometimes you see a workforce that has so many, they have a right to form a union. They don't know. They don't know, But you see, the thing is, the question about unions being encouraged, sometimes the unions, they also take it to very,
extreme,
incredible lengths, actually, incredible extent, But this is not about the union. There's also labor arbitration. But the thing is, to what extent is the worker in the Chinese factory aware of what legal steps are available to him?
We will come back to talk about this, I'm sure we will. There's still so much to be discussed in this regard, and I'm sure that when we come back from the break, you can call in, you can ask your questions. So take this time out to prepare your questions. Victor is standing by with news. The conversation continues in a bit. Stay tuned.
Good morning, Nigeria. You're welcome back. It's still our top story segment of this morning's show, and we've had a very, very interesting discussion thus far with our expert in the studio, Mrs. Enife Atubeloye, just to let you know a little bit about her background and to understand the reason why she's come with deep insights into work practices in Nigeria. Now, Mr. Atubeloye is a seasoned human resources professional with over 20 years of progressive and extensive HR management and consulting experience from both local and global HR angles. She holds a master's in organizational performance from the Cranfield School of Management and a bachelor's degree in English. She also holds a certificate of competence from the British Psychological Society. She became the first African to be certified as a global practitioner in human resources by the Society for Human Resources Management. You're very welcome again. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I know you had to quickly rush to a conference after this, so thank you for sparing your time to join us. Just to recap, we've been speaking on employment practices, looking at the rights of employees in the workplaces, and also looking at how you, as an employee, can seek for help and seek for help or know your rights, as it were, in the workplace. You can join the conversation. Call our numbers 01277-8196, 01277-2196, and 01277-196.
Okay, so we'll come back. We've been talking extensively. We've talked about the rights of employees. But I do also know that some employers watching out there will feel cheated if we do not focus on the rights of employers. So just before I go to my next question, these employers, I'm sure they have rights. What are their rights?
Thank you very much. I actually just noted that it's actually both ways. It's both ways. Both ways because it really takes two to tango. The reason employers get into business at all is to do business, pretty much, to make profit and to make sense. So the reason employers employ employees in the first place is because they want employees to work, right? Now, the reason many, and I put this in quotes, many employers also, the reason they need to apply discipline is because the employees need to be helped to work. and that's putting it mildly, And increasingly, looking at the labor market right now, the employee practices are going on the decline. The sense of commitment is dropping. Employees don't even, sometimes you wonder if they know why they are hired.
Right.
So indeed, the employer also has a right to be served. If I pay you, then you have a right, I have a right to be served.
Yes.
Right. And also, call it an emotional or psychological right for you to be connected with the vision. It's beyond just paying you and you taking your money and going away. How do we continue as a business? What extra commitments? So I give you an employment letter. I may never be able to draft every single thing I'll ask you to do. There will be additions here and there,
Yes.
And you as an employee ought to have the level of commitment to be able to make those reasonable additions.
Now, we do know that sometimes there is a sort of break in transmission between what the employer wants and what the employee wants. One part is probably not able to fulfill their end of the bargain. Most times, the employee. Now, when the employee defaults, what are the right ways to discipline them?
There's so many ways you can discipline your employee. First of all, what I say is a must is you have to have pre-agreed processes of discipline. So from the beginning, you as an employee, you know that if things go wrong and they look like this is exactly what it means. Okay, so typically we advise that you have the conversation. So the employee is not doing well, you call him in and you let him know he's not doing well. And if you as a manager are doing a good job, then the conversation is not such a heavy conversation. It's a conversation that's going on continuously because you're giving feedback and you're doing that as the employee is performing. But when it becomes very critical, yes, you sit with the employee and you have the conversation. Now, if conversation is not working, you step it up to a query. Right. Now, because it's a preconceived process of helping ourselves, if you remember I used the word help.
Helping, yes.
Then the employee knows that I just got one query. Looks like if I get one or two more according to our pre-agreed process, then I'm going to be in for either discipline, a sack or something, depending on what. So typically we say query him twice or 3 times, right? And then you can then call him up for. It depends on what the disciplinary issue is. So if you take a typical terms and conditions of service, there are very grievous things like stealing. Oh, we don't condone fighting here, fighting. If an employee fights, then we will be letting you know from day one that if he gets to a fight, we are dismissing you.
All right. Just before we continue, we have
Right.
Bala from Niger State on the line. And Bala, you're very welcome. Good morning. Good morning, Bala.
Hello, good morning.
You're very welcome. Bala, please do us a favor and turn down the volume of your TV set.
Okay, I've done that.
Thank you. Please go ahead with your questions or comments.
All right. I want to, there's actually so many things going on in an organization where employment occurs. Well, I think at times the employee has to be given rights to contribute in that maybe particular organization, because at times they take the employees for granted, but they have nothing to offer. So what are those things that need to be put in place for an employee to actually discover his talent in where he's actually working?
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Bala. I think this boils down to respect as well, in terms of honoring the fact that your employees are bringing something to the table. We have another caller on the line, Comrade Ola from Ikeja. Comrade, you're very welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Comrade Ola,
Good morning, my sister.
you're very welcome. Please go ahead with your question.
Thanks for having me.
Fine, thank
Yeah,
you.
what I just want to add is that, hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Please continue with your comment or your question.
I think it's systemic, so it's about our culture. My comment, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go on.
My comment is that it has to do with our culture. And when I mean our culture, I'm talking about our system, our legal system that empowers these people, that is the so-called Asians, either the small or medium enterprise, because they are the ones that are more guilty. In fact, I can tell you vividly because of my involvement in different industrial relation programs and at the level of union in my former company, that many of these companies, they started as a small shop and they grew to a bigger company. There is no regulation, there is no particular updating of the system and how they are being controlled. So lack of that internal control is a major problem in Nigeria. Yes, sir. Thank you. You have an industrialist on seat and a human relation expert. Go and check our status book. We don't know what it takes to establish in Nigeria. The system is so chaotic. So until we bring human resources as a core factor in industrial management, we will never get it right. Because here it's about money, targets, and nothing, no respect for human beings.
All right.
Safety issues are being taken for granted. So many things.
Thank you
Let's go
so
back to our
much.
law and see what our labor laws are saying. And let the National Assembly sit up. Let everybody do his job. If any company do it wrong, let the court decide. Not just like issue of compensation because you cut somebody's hand.
Exactly.
What about you cut somebody's head? What about the dependents? So please, let's take it outside nationality.
All
It's
right.
not
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Comrade Ola.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, of
Thank you
course.
very much, Comrade Ola. I particularly like the point about putting human resources in the right in the middle. Really, it's about culture. Really, it's about culture. And think about it, Comrade Ola. I also like the fact that you say it's beyond the Asian companies. Oh yes, they are taking advantage of the situation. That's just the truth. If you go, I mean, if there's no regulation, it got to a point in Nigeria, I know a couple of people who would travel to Ghana to be able to travel cheaper, maybe on business class or something to the UK. Because right here in Nigeria, we're paying almost twice the price. It's about regulation, right? However, we also need to drive it beyond even the Asians. Take your typical house helps. Please, they are a member of the workforce.
Thank you very
right?
much.
How do we treat our house helps? How? I mean, how do we engage them in the workplace? Even those guys who probably were on strike, and even some of the people that were interviewed in the streets, you may want to go and check how they are treating their house helps. Perhaps not really well. It's a cultural thing. It's very cultural, and it's about fundamental human rights. And you see, our culture doesn't help, really. Because if you look at our even traditional culture, the elder is always right. It's the same thing. The employer is always right. It just translates. That's what it is. So you can't even, whereas if you look at international organizations, they actually have employee representative councils where the employees themselves actually sit down and put policies together with a guide, if you know what I mean. Yes. And when that comes out, everyone complies by the policy.
Yes. So we bring culture into the workplace, and you've made a very, very fundamental point, because a number of people even feel it's not their right to speak up at meetings, because that is what the employer has said.
Yes.
I want to respect the person who is older than me in the workplace.
Yeah.
So they're silenced, and they don't feel the need to even challenge policies that do not quite sit right with them.
Just speaking a bit more about culture. there's also the thing about the people we're bringing. So take Chinese work culture. I said it before. Yeah. Very different from our work culture. Take the Indian work culture. Some people joke, they say they live to work, you know. Yeah. But you see, the thing is, we don't live to work. And I'm not saying they necessarily, of a truth, completely live to work, but they work differently, right? Yes. And so it's also important for us to be able to ask big questions about when we license these organizations to come into the country, what kind of culture are they running? And or perhaps impose our culture on them. Yes. I know it's a long haul. I mean, it doesn't happen in one day, you know, but really it's about culture.
You've said it. Indeed, it's a long haul. It's a long discussion as well. Right. It's a difficult and tedious mix or maze to unravel or to try and find out, because we have a long way to go, unfortunately, in Nigeria when it comes to employment rights. You mentioned something off air, indeed, also about the legal system and the fact that it doesn't quite favor the employees as well. But we hope we can have you again as our guest so that we can speak, maybe have a part 2 of this discussion, and people can then send in the questions ahead of time and be able to have you answer some very pertinent questions. Just before we go, parting shots, and then we can move on with the show.
Okay, parting shots. I'm going to speak to employers and I'll speak to employees. To employers, I will say this. I understand the fact that you are set up to do business. I understand that. I understand the fact that you will not hire the employees if you don't need them to work. I also understand the fact that the level of commitment at work and the quality is dropping every day. I understand that. However, for every single employee you bring into your system, can we just remember that they are human beings and they have a right to be treated with respect? And you can demoralize them psychologically, terribly. And you can actually change their lives also, psychologically, very well. And so it's an opportunity for you as an employer. I'm talking to that CEO up there. You can respect the janitor down there. You can actually honor them, it is possible. And you can still discipline whilst doing that. Now to the employees, I have a lot to say. I would just say, can we also, it is true things have been bad, can we also commit ourselves to what we do? Can we also decide that if I put my hands on it, it's got to be different? Because you are writing your story. And at the end of the day, people will read your story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What a fantastic way to end this section of today's show. Thank you so much, Mrs. Enife Atobiloye. And of course, like she said and committed herself here, that she will be back again for a second round. GMNS continues after this break.
So, did you like what you just saw? I know you did. It's very simple. If you want to see more, just subscribe to our channel right now.